In the 1950s, a movement was growing, known as the Civil Rights Movement. Blacks were being mistreated and took a stand. But they weren't the only ones. A man that went by the name of Jacob Rothschild stood with blacks in a place where advocating civil rights comes with a great cost: Atlanta, Georgia. Rothschild and his congregation witnessed this firsthand with the bombing of his temple. On August 4th, 1911, Jacob Mortimer Rothschild was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He grew up in Temple Rodef Shalom, a Reformed Jewish congregation led by Samuel Goldenson. Due to Goldenson's example, Rothschild later went to Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in Cincinnati, Ohio. After his ordainment, Rothschild went to a temple in Davenport, Iowa, only to go back to his home temple in Pittsburgh 1 year later. But his stay in Pittsburgh was short-lived as well. Like many men, Rothschild felt like he needed to enter the military to serve his country in World War II. In March of 1942, Rothschild left for training at Fort Bragg, where he became a chaplain for the U.S. Army. In September of 1942, 2nd Lieutenant Rothschild was sent to the Pacific Theater, where his division later backed up Marines at Guadalcanal. Then, on April 7th, 1946, 4 years after entering the military, Rothschild was honorably discharged from active duty. Rothschild returned home with the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal, 1 Bronze Star, the American Theater Campaign Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, 2 Overseas Service Bars, and 1 call waiting for him that would change his life. Within 1 month of Rothschild being out of the military, he had already gotten an offer to work at a temple. He was invited to the Hebrew Benevolent Congregation, the oldest temple in Atlanta, Georgia. Of course, Rothschild took the job in Atlanta, but when he arrived, things were very different. Racism, anti-Semitism, Jim Crow laws were all there, some of the things he had never seen before, being from up north. Rothschild was already against racism, but seeing what he did when he arrived in Atlanta made him vocal about it, and he took a stand. He began denouncing segregation and racism in his sermons. Some of his first noted anti-racism sermons were in his Rosh Hashanah sermon and his High Holy Day sermon. Over time, he began to work more and more with the community. He worked with the Christian clergy and became active in civic affairs. He joined the Atlanta Council on Human Relations, the Georgia Council of Human Relations, the Southern Regional Council, the Urban League, and the National Conference of Christians and Jews, all to promote cooperation with his Christian colleagues. Rothschild even established the Institute for the Christian Clergy, an annual day-long event hosted by the temple each year. Black ministers were always at the temple's interfaith events and on other occasions. He even reached out to Morehouse College President Benjamin Mays to try and create equality. Not all the members of the congregation liked Rothschild speaking out, for they were scared that what happened to Leo Frank would happen to them as well. Rothschild's congregations weren't the only ones against what Rothschild was doing. Groups like the Knights of the White Camilla, the National States Rights Party, and a group called the Columbians were all against Rothschild's stand, and eventually they took a stand of their own. On October 12, 1958, at 3:37 in the morning, 50 sticks of dynamite blew a hole into the side of the Hebrew Benevolent Congregation, marking the 7th of 8 temple bombings in just 2 years. Shortly after the bombing, police arrived on the scenes. Mayor William Hartsfield also arrived. This was his statement to the press.
Atlanta has always been a lighthouse of racial and religious tolerance in the South, and we are shocked and amazed that this awful thing could happen in our midst. And we prefer to believe that it is the work of people outside of our city. We have brought every resource of law enforcement to bear We have offered rewards, and we hope that the perpetrators of this thing will be apprehended. But my friends, here you see the end result of bigotry and intolerance. And whether they like it or not, those who practice rabble-rousing and demagoguery are the godfathers of the cross-burners and the dynamite.
The bomb had caused close to $200,000 in damage to the temple. It was so bad that President Eisenhower had to send in the much-needed federal help into Atlanta.
Some people at the temple that felt like his speaking out had caused the temple to be chosen to be bombed.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
So what, to your question about what was the effect of the bombing on the temple, I think it caused a lot of people at the temple to think, and to think about, because Rabbi Rothschild preached that that segregation was immoral and it was just not right, and there were people at the temple that didn't agree with that, and I think once the bombing happened, I think the temple, I think people realized how much of a moral issue this was.
The bomber of the temple, George Bright, believed his actions of bombing the temple would pit white activists and black activists in Atlanta against each other. But he couldn't have been more wrong. The community's response to the bombing began to create change.
When we rebuilt, they replaced, had to rebuild. They built a big auditorium type thing, and it's called Friendship Hall, and that was because of the overwhelming support of the community, non-Jewish and Jewish.
Many organizations, such as the Presbyterian Church, the National Jewish Community Center, the Atlanta Chief of Police, and Norris Herndon, the son of Alonzo Herndon, the president of Atlanta Life Insurance Company, gave their support and money to help the temple. In his letter, Herndon states, "We have here in America a group of un-American, ungodly men who would pit race, religion, and even nations themselves against each other and make America unsafe for those who believe in the freedom of mind and soul and the equality of men. Men free in mind and soul must rid our nation of those forces who would destroy us from within." Many were angered by the bombing and only fueled their fire for equality for blacks. Rather than step away from public, Rothschild stepped into his activism following the bombing. His first sermon back at the temple was, "And none shall make them afraid," serving as his motto for Rothschild's life. While advocating civil rights, Rothschild forged a close relationship with Martin Luther King Jr. After King received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, Rothschild helped organize a city-sponsored banquet in King's honor. Following King's assassination in 1968, the combined clergy of Atlanta held a memorial service, and Rothschild was selected by his peers to deliver the eulogy. In the years after King's death, Rothschild continued to speak regularly about social justice and civil rights until he died. Because Rothschild took a stand, all of Atlanta was changed for the better.